There was a small, skinny, and very disheveled kitten that lived in an old, dilapidated building in a big city. It was his birthday, but he had no one to celebrate it with because he was all alone. He had no mom or any other relatives, so he spent most of his days wandering around the streets in search of food. One day, while looking for some sustenance, the kitten came across an old tailor shop. He took shelter inside and fell asleep. When he woke up, he noticed a blue shirt hanging on a rack nearby. It fit him perfectly, and just as he was about to put it on, he saw a pair of scissors on a table. He thought they were perfect for cutting off the sleeves and making the shirt more comfortable. He did that and put it on. Then he found an old hat with the words "Happy Birthday" written on it. And even though he didn't really know what any of it meant, he was excited to have something to wear for his special day. He left the shop and went out into the street. But soon he realized that nobody had remembered his birthday, and there weren't even any birds singing or butterflies fluttering around. He felt so lonely, and when he tried to meow happily, he only managed to produce a weak and sad sound. Feeling dejected, he decided to return to the shop, but on the way, he encountered two well-dressed kittens who began to tease him mercilessly. They asked him if he really thought those ragged clothes were appropriate attire for someone who wasn't living under a bridge. The kittens made fun of him until he was in tears, and finally he ran away from them, hiding behind a dumpster. There, he pulled the tattered shirt closer to his body, wishing he had someone who truly cared about him. The pain of that experience motivated him to take action and improve his situation. So the next morning, he went to the local garbage dump in search of food. He ate some moldy bread he found there and drank water from a discarded plastic bottle. But even though he was trying to be brave and strong, the memory of the previous day's events made him burst into tears. At that moment, he realized that he needed to do something to change his circumstances. He couldn't keep living like this forever. As time passed, the kitten grew stronger and more determined. Every day, he would go to the garbage dump to eat and drink, and he would spend the rest of his time exploring the city. He wanted to find a way to make money so he could buy new clothes and a better place to live. One day, he saw a group of older cats collecting used glass bottles and newspapers. He approached them cautiously, not knowing what to expect. But to his surprise, they welcomed him and explained that they were collecting the items to recycle and earn some money. The kitten was delighted to have found a job, and he quickly got to work. He helped to gather recyclables and sort them according to type. He worked hard every day, saving every penny he earned in hopes of buying a new shirt. After several weeks of saving, he had enough money to buy a nice shirt and shoes. He was so happy to finally have new clothes that he put them on right away and went out to show them off. He walked down the street with his head held high, feeling like a new cat. But his joy was short-lived because when he passed by the same tailor shop where he had found his old clothes, he saw the two well-dressed cats again. They were sitting on the windowsill and they started to laugh at him. They said he looked ridiculous and that his new clothes didn't make him any less poor. The kitten felt humiliated and wanted to disappear. He ran away from the shop as fast as he could and hid in an abandoned building. There he stayed for several days, too ashamed to face anyone. But eventually he came out and decided to try again to find another job. He needed to get more money so he could buy a better house and maybe even some food. As he was walking along the street, he saw a construction site and walked over to take a closer look. He saw that the workers were carrying sacks of cement up and down the stairs of a high-rise building. He knew he could help them and asked if he could carry one of the sacks. The worker was surprised to see such a small cat asking for a job, but he allowed him to try. The kitten struggled to carry the heavy sack, but he managed to bring it to the top floor without dropping it. The workers cheered him on and asked him to carry another one. And so the kitten worked hard as a delivery boy on that construction site for several weeks. He saved every penny he earned and dreamed of having enough money to buy a nice house and not have to wander the streets at night. Finally, after many weeks of saving, he had enough money to buy a small house and some furniture. He was so happy to finally have a place to call home that he immediately moved in and started unpacking his things. But as he was placing his few belongings in the house, he realized that he didn't have anything to sit on except for a small wooden box. He thought for a moment and then went back to the construction site. He asked the workers if they had any old chairs or tables they could give him, and they were happy to oblige. They brought out an old chair and table, and the kitten was overjoyed. He thanked them and hurried home to put them in his new house. Now he had a place to sit and relax after a long day's work. The kitten continued to work on the construction site, saving money and improving his house. He added a rug, some pictures on the wall, and even a bed made out of old wood. He was proud of how far he had come from being a small, hungry kitten to having a home of his own. But his greatest reward was the feeling of satisfaction and pride he had from working hard and achieving his goals. One day, after a particularly hard day's work, the kitten was walking home when he passed by the tailor shop again. He was exhausted and just wanted to get home and rest. But as he walked past the shop, he heard the sound of laughter and voices. Curious, he stopped to listen and heard the two well-dressed cats from before talking about how they had tricked a young female kitten into giving them her money. They were laughing and making fun of her, and the kitten was disgusted. He couldn't believe that they would treat someone so badly, and he was angry. He wanted to say something, but he hesitated. He didn't want to start a fight, but the cats continued to make fun of the kitten, and he finally snapped. He opened the door and yelled at them, telling them they were jerks and that nobody liked them. The cats were shocked to see someone standing in the doorway yelling at them. They had been so caught up in their own conversation that they hadn't noticed anyone else around. The kitten continued to yell at them, telling them that they were mean and that they deserved to be alone like he had been. The cats were stunned. They had never been spoken to like that before, and they didn't know what to say. They tried to apologize, but the kitten wouldn't let them. He told them to leave and never come back. The cats were embarrassed and ashamed of themselves. They had never been called out like that before, and they didn't know what to do. They mumbled apologies and slowly backed out of the shop. Once they were gone, the kitten felt better. He had stood up for himself, and he felt proud. From that day on, the cats never bothered the kitten again. They had learned their lesson, and they knew that he wasn't someone to be messed with. The kitten continued to work hard and save money, and he eventually had enough to buy a brand new suit. He was so happy with his new clothes that he put them on right away and went for a walk down the street. He walked with his head held high, feeling like a true gentleman. As he walked past the tailor shop, he saw the two well-dressed cats sitting on the windowsill. They were stunned to see the kitten in such fine clothes, and they couldn't believe that he was the same skinny, raggedy cat they had made fun of before. The kitten didn't even acknowledge them. He walked past them without a word and continued on his way. The cats were left speechless and stunned. They had never seen the kitten like this before, and they didn't know what to say. They watched as he walked away, and they couldn't help but feel a sense of shame and embarrassment. The kitten had come a long way since they had first met him. He had gone from being a small, hungry stray to a successful businessman with a great new suit. As the kitten continued his walk down the street, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. He had worked hard to get where he was, and he knew that his success was the result of his determination and hard work. He wasn't the same skinny, raggedy kitten who had wandered the streets alone. He was now a confident and successful young cat, and he was ready to take on the world. He stopped for a moment and gave a thumbs up to the camera. He wanted to thank everyone who had supported him on his journey. He had come a long way, and he knew that he couldn't have done it without the help of others. As he continued his walk, the sun shone brightly in the sky, and the birds sang sweetly in the trees. It was a beautiful day, and the kitten was happy to be alive and to be living his best life. Then suddenly, he stopped and turned back to look at the derelict building where he had started his journey. He had come a long way, and he knew that he would never forget where he came from. With a grateful heart, he turned back and continued on his way, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And as he walked, he couldn't help but think about all the people who had supported him on his journey. He knew that he owed much of his success to their kindness and generosity, and he was grateful for every one of them. Finally, he stopped and looked up at the camera. He had a big smile on his face, and his eyes were filled with gratitude. He wanted to send a special message to all of the channel's 1.9 million subscribers. He thanked them for their support and for watching his videos. He knew that he wouldn't be where he was today without them, and he was so grateful for their love and appreciation. With that, he gave a final thumbs up and disappeared down the street, leaving behind a legacy of hard work, determination, and gratitude.